could Alexander Isak be a problem for Liverpool? I think that Jadon Sancho is a dangerous signing, so it's borderline insulting to be dragged back to Chelsea. He is, without a doubt, the most disappointing Manchester United signing.
Hello, I'm Owens and welcome to The Window, talkSPORT's daily video transfer update. It is deadline day and today has the potential to be the most dramatic deadline day in history. Joining me today is talkSPORT reporter Angelina. And today is the big one. How do you think this is going to shape up by the time we hit 7 p.m?
I mean, I'll be completely honest, I don't know what is going to happen. I've been up since pretty early this morning and we already had the news about Alexander Isak last night. You know, you get to 11 a.m, we've already had a lot of talk about Jadon Sancho, Yohan Wissa, Nicholas Jackson, which I'm sure we'll get into. But, you know, the Premier League spending was at £2.73 billion for the window last night / this morning. So that's probably going to go beyond £3 billion. We've seen teams breaking transfer records, registering record sales. So it's been very, very interesting. And I really think that this is going to go down to the wire because when you look at each team individually, you could argue that every single team needs something, but whether they're all going to get it is a completely different question.
Were you surprised to see Liverpool go for that big of an offer? And are you kind of happy that this is finally over, this saga?
I'm very happy that it's over. I mean, I'm a Manchester United fan, so I've got no skin in this race whatsoever. But I just think it went on for far too long. I'm not surprised that Liverpool ended up coming in for him. I feel that, you know, at the end of the day, it was just a little bit more money that they needed to get the job done. I think we always knew that that was the player that Liverpool wanted and that was the player that they were going to get. We've, you know, spoken to people across these episodes of The Window about, you know, PSR and how Liverpool have been really smart over a couple of seasons prior to this to ensure that they could come into this window and be extremely strong. And that's exactly what they've done. And obviously, Alexander Isak wanted Liverpool. So, yeah, I'm not too surprised that the deal got done for the amount because I think that everybody could see that the writing was on the wall. I think for me, what will be really interesting is how he's received at Liverpool. I mean, on talkSPORT on the radio side, we've had callers that are Liverpool fans that are talking about, you know, Alexander Isak. Could Alexander Isak be a problem for Liverpool? Because whatever way you look at the way that he handled the transfer, him, you know, refusing to play essentially, some people might admire that. Some people might think, well, what kind of character is he? And could he end up doing the same thing to Liverpool if he has a good couple of seasons at Liverpool and let's say Real Madrid come calling, for example? Is he going to do the same thing again? So I think that is probably a worry in the back of Liverpool fans' minds, but they're getting a fantastic striker who's going to score a lot of goals for them. And I think that if you're Arsenal fans or you're Chelsea fans or Manchester City fans and other fans as well, but especially those, you know, you look at Liverpool and think, how are they not going to win this Premier League title?
Yeah, I mean, Newcastle have looked a little, I guess, shaky, maybe we could say, to be polite, since the new season started. Newcastle have just agreed a deal for Brentford striker Wissa for £55 million. Do you think this is what Newcastle kind of needs now to raise their spirits after the whole Isak and Liverpool situation?
Oh, massively. This will be a big boost. And I also think for Yohan Wissa, it's going to be a big boost. I mean, we've seen that he also, you know, was down tools with Brentford and has very publicly come out and said that he feels that they were blocking the move. But I think £55 million for Brentford is a really, really good deal. And I think for Newcastle, it's who they wanted. Of course, it's not only Alexander Isak that's departed, it's been Callum Wilson as well. So they have needed those reinforcements. I mean, you look at the numbers. I mean, Wissa scored 20 goals last season. They've also, Newcastle signed Nick Voltemade, who scored 17 goals last season. So if they can get close to those numbers again, then I think if you're a Newcastle fan, you feel a little bit, you know, calmer about the situation when you look at that. But I think, you know, it's been really tough for Eddie Howe as a manager to have to deal with this so publicly. And also, it has been a little bit embarrassing for Newcastle at times because don't get me wrong, I think they're a brilliant club, but they have gone in for so many players and they haven't got it over the line. Look at Brian Mbeumo, look at Benjamin Šeško, for example. All these players that they're being linked with. And you've got a team like Manchester United getting those two, who are, fair enough, it's Manchester United, but they were 15th in the Premier League. So I think these moves really, really have to work for Newcastle, especially, with the way that it went against Liverpool. You really thought they were going to win that one, but you looked at the Anthony Gordon situation. I think it's going to be really, really important for Wizard to hit the ground running.
If we move on now to Aston Villa, who have had, again, a few hit and misses over this transfer period. I think that's fair to say. They've signed today Lindelof on a loan, and they've also agreed a deal for Sancho on a loan. So is this kind of what we should be expecting from Villa, do you think?
If I was an Aston Villa fan, I would be absolutely fuming. I mean, when you look at Aston Villa, the major issue is PSR. They are in a real hole at the moment. They've even sold their women's team to try and help. And even that isn't touching the sides, reportedly. So, you look at their wage bills are far, far too high. And that's the problem that they've got. We've seen a lot of outgoings, not a lot of incomings. I think if I touch on Victor Lindelof, as a Manchester United fan, out of all the signings that have been made over the last decade, give or take, Lindelof has definitely not been the worst. We'll probably get on to the worst one in a little bit. But Lindelof can probably do a job for a Premier League side. Did I think that it would be a team as high up the table as Aston Villa? Probably not. But you know what? I think he was a good servant to Manchester United overall, so happy for him. The Jadon Sancho situation has really, really shocked me, because you look at Jadon Sancho, Chelsea did want him, but he wouldn't accept the wages. There were reports that he didn't want to accept the wages at Roma. And Aston Villa are going to be paying 80% of his wages, and there also could be performance-related bonuses on top. I think that Jadon Sancho is a dangerous signing for Aston Villa, because you literally do not know what you're going to get, because we saw him playing for Chelsea, yes, but he's not had a normal pre-season with Manchester United. He's been in this quote-unquote bomb squad that have not been training with the first team. He's not played any Premier League games or Cup games so far this season. And, I think, what does Jadon Sancho really want? Because does he want to be playing at the highest level? Or does he just want to collect a paycheck? I'm a little bit confused with him and some of the moves that he's been making. And when I look at Jadon Sancho, I think of somebody like a Romelu Lukaku who, when he made the first move, when he moved to United, he was getting about £195,000 per week. Then he took a pay cut, and he went down to about £150,000 per week. Still a lot of money, by the way. But then he raised his stock in Italy, and he then got a move to Chelsea where he got £325,000 a week. So I think Lukaku is a really good example of how you can take those pay cuts and humble yourself, and you can then come back even stronger. And it's disappointing that Sancho hasn't maybe realised that. But yeah, like I say, I'd be a little bit worried if I was an Aston Villa fan, because I really don't know which way this will go.
It's interesting actually to think about performance-based bonuses when you have absolutely no idea if that player will ever perform.
Yeah, it's absolutely ludicrous. And I think the saddest thing about the Jadon Sancho situation is that he was in the under-17s World Cup squad with Conor Gallagher, Morgan Gibbs-White, Phil Foden. Saka's a year younger than him. Cole Palmer's 2 years younger than him. And he stayed with, Cole Palmer is a Chelsea player. Had Sancho have stayed with Chelsea, he'd have been a Club World Cup winner. He'd have been a champion of the world by now. And he was up there with some of the best, and he's nowhere near close now. And like you say, with performance-related bonuses, I'd be interested to see what exactly they are. And I think you look at Aston Villa, they were linked with Paquetá at West Ham. Obviously, that clearly is not happening. They did have Marco Asensio on loan. He's now actually going to Fenerbahce in the end. They were unable to get that done. So those two names alone massively trump Jadon Sancho. So yeah, I'm sorry, Aston Villa fans. I really hope for Jadon Sancho's sake that he is able to turn it around, but I'm just not convinced.
No, definitely not. I actually want to go back really quickly to something you said there about Villa selling their women's team.
Yes.
So do you think that this could be something we see more clubs doing when money gets tight? They just, try to see who wants to buy off. Obviously, we know that there are some clubs who have come out, like United, and basically, said
they're not interested.
Really care, about our women's team. Do you think that's going to be a trend we see where people just sell off their women's team in order to fund their men's team?
Well, yeah, we've seen it happen with Everton, and we've also seen it happen with Chelsea. I mean, they sold the team to parent company Blueco for £198.7 million. So yeah, we are seeing this. I mean, don't get me wrong. One thing I will say about Chelsea is that their women's team is extremely valuable, and I think that being at the training ground, seeing the players and speaking to someone like Sonia Bonpastor, the manager, I think that they do take their women's team very, very seriously. But you look at teams like Everton and Aston Villa that are not on that level, and those decisions that they're making, it is a little bit worrying. And I think whatever the finances are behind it, it's more the optics of it that it doesn't look good, because it sends a message that you don't. I guess people can argue, well, you're valuing it because you're selling it in a way, but you're not valuing it in the right way. You're not valuing your women's team as being part of your football club if you're so easily able to just discard it in that way. So it is a little bit concerning, and I think it's something that we could see happen again.
I suppose it's a bit like selling off your parents' things after they die, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just, the stuff you found in the back room. But,
just get rid.
Yeah. But let's head back now to the men's game, of course. Now, Nicholas Jackson over the weekend was in Germany, ready to go.
Yep.
Ready for his
Love this
medical,
story.
before being completely called back by Chelsea because Delap got injured, and he refused to go. His agents told him not to come back and just stay out in Germany and, I don't know, just run away there. What on earth do you think is actually going to happen? Because now we're still seeing that it's touch and go for them.
Yeah, I absolutely love this story. So, of course, Nicholas Jackson, he went to Germany over the weekend. He was supposed to be doing this medical with Bayern Munich. It didn't happen because Liam Delap got injured for Chelsea. So they immediately panicked and thought, we need to recall Nicholas Jackson, who was absolutely livid and said, not happening. I'm having this loan deal. Chelsea now have 2 days off, and then he will be flying to Senegal to represent his nation. So he's got a little bit of time now, but the reports are stating that Bayern Munich are once again considering a move. And that although they wanted to keep hold of the player, Chelsea are inquiring about other players. So they now could be open to reviving this situation. But it will be an interesting one. I think for Nicholas Jackson, I think it would be a great move to Bayern Munich, whether they do end up sorting out a loan eventually, or if it does end up being more of a permanent transfer that would make Chelsea feel a little bit more comfortable. It's a tough one because I enjoy the drama of it, but if you're Chelsea, Nicholas Jackson is your player. He has signed a contract, and if you need to recall your player, you need to recall your player. However, if I was Nicholas Jackson, you're clearly on the outs. Chelsea clearly don't see you in their long-term plans. So it's borderline insulting to be dragged back to Chelsea. Delap reportedly is going to be out about 8 weeks, so that takes you to the beginning of November. So they would potentially use him until November, and then he would be sidelined, which would mean his stock would drop even lower. So the chances of getting another loan or another permanent move to somewhere like a Bayern Munich is going to get less and less. So I can understand his frustration. I don't know if he's still in Munich, if he's hiding out there. I love the idea of Chelsea officials, swarming Munich trying to find him or something. But yeah, it will be interesting. And I think if I'm Nicholas Jackson, you really do want this move to Bayern.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think once it hits November, I mean, let's be real, he's gone in the transfer window in January anyway.
Yeah.
Once Delap's back. So it is, I do get it from Chelsea's point of view, but it does seem like a big waste of time.
Yeah.
For Jackson, for sure. But a lot of deals are, of course, still up in the air at the time of recording. Of course, it's deadline day and things change very rapidly.
Yes.
What do you think is going to happen with Guehi?
This is a tough one because our very own Simon Jordan at talkSPORT seems confident that it will happen. talkSPORT are now reporting that they're confident that Liverpool will sign Marc Guehi. The deal is expected to be completed before the close of this transfer window. This morning it did look like the deal wouldn't happen, but as time's ticking on, it seems like the two clubs are locked in on talks. It would mean that Guehi would probably have the medical in London. I think for me, though, this is a sad one for Crystal Palace because you look at the situation. Steve Parish is in a really difficult predicament because he can either sell Guehi today and get a decent amount of money for him, but that then leaves Crystal Palace extremely exposed. They're really riding the crest of a wave at the moment. They've won the FA Cup, they've won the Community Shield, they're in the Europa Conference League. Whatever people's opinions of that are, this is a competition that they could win. And could somebody like a Marc Guehi be the difference for them in defence for them winning something in Europe like that. And that would then mean that they're in the Europa League. So financially, that would really help. So is it worth selling Guehi versus just keeping hold of him and taking, the loss that he would go for free? I'm not too sure. And Oliver Glasner was really, really vocal last night about it. Praised him as an individual. He's been praised so much as a professional for still showing up and still playing and scoring that fantastic goal last night against Aston Villa. So I think this will be a really bittersweet one for Crystal Palace. But again, for Liverpool, they've looked very shaky in defence. And this, again, is proving the point even more of how are Liverpool not going to win the Premier League, because they're so strong across the board with Guehi as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And we haven't even properly touched on, I would say, your own team, Manchester United.
Go on then.
I mean, it has been a bit of a madness for them. I mean, even Eric Ten Hag's getting sacked again. So it has been quite the curse of Man United, I would say, this week. But it seems like they're still on a hunt for a goalkeeper.
Reportedly, Emi Martinez did not feature for Aston Villa last night. We saw the hilarious clip of the manager refusing to answer questions. It was absolutely hysterical. But, he didn't feature. It seemed like at the end of last season that he was ready to depart because he was saying his farewells to the fans, etc. And, of course, they did bring in a backup goalkeeper who you assume is now going to be their number one. But yeah, it looks like, as much as he was being linked to Manchester United, and I was of the opinion of, is he better for the mentality that he has versus an Andre Onana? 100%. But I think stats-wise, they are quite similar. But reportedly, it's not happening. We have heard that Emi Martinez is not going to be going to Manchester United. And instead, forgive me if I say his name incorrectly, but Sens Lemons, we're going with. He's flying to Manchester to complete a move. It's looking about £18 million plus add-ons. So he is a 6'3" Belgium under-21 international, made his senior debut for Club Brugge in July 2021. He's at Royal Antwerp at the moment. An exciting player, a very, very young talent, which does alarm me a little bit. Seems like he will be there in competition with Andre Onana and obviously Bayern as well. Andre Onana does have the Africa Cup of Nations, so he will be out of the squad for a while. So it's good that they've brought somebody in. I think that people may have preferred Martinez just because he's proven in the Premier League. He's a little bit older. He's a World Cup winner at the end of the day. And he has got a little bit... he's got a real personality, Martinez. He likes to be a bit of a wind-up, and I think the Man United fans would like that. But overall, they need a goalkeeper that is better than Andre Onana and Altay Bayındır. And you would like to think the amount of hype around this player that he is going to be able to bring something different to the table.
Yeah, I suppose we have probably another game of Ruben Amorim looking absolutely miserable on the sidelines, just regardless of everything that's going on. We also are hearing that for Antony, there is going to be a £60 million loss. What do you think?
I mean, for me, I am rejoicing that Antony has left Manchester United because he is, without a doubt, the most disappointing Manchester United signing. Antony is, without a doubt, the biggest, most expensive flop that Manchester United have ever seen. And he's in the running for top 5 probably in the Premier League. I feel for him in a way that this hasn't worked out because we see it a lot with players, he didn't ask for that price tag, like you can't, it's hard having it over your head. And mentally, I don't know if that did play a role with Antony. I mean, he went to Real Betis on loan. That has really worked out for him. He is loved by the players. He's loved by the fans. They wanted to keep him, so we always knew that this was going to happen. So they did have a deal in place, but it was called off by Real Betis because they felt that the overall cost of £25 million was too high. But they've now reached an agreement and the fee is just under £22 million. So yeah, it is an absolutely colossal loss. It's an embarrassment for Manchester United that they're even in this situation. I blame Eric Ten Hag, and maybe it's karma that he got sacked. I don't know. No, I'm just kidding. But but I just this is the best situation for the player. It's the best situation for the club. I genuinely do wish him well. I hope that he goes on and does okay. Because you don't want to see players, be absolutely terrible and seriously decline. But for Manchester United to shift him is huge, and it's a massive, massive positive going forward.
Well, Ange, thank you so much for joining me today. That has been the final window of the
final
transfer
one.
window. Now, the transfer window slams shut at 7 p.m. tonight, live into a Deadline Day special with Mr. Deadline Day himself, Jim White, our chief football correspondent Alex Crook, and former Liverpool midfielder Danny Murphy. Join Jim, Alex, Danny, and a host of insiders and experts from 6:30 today, following a special Deadline Day drive show with Andy Goldstein and Darren Bent, analysing and dissecting all the last-minute deals. The window is in association with our own bookie, talkSPORT Bet, so download the app or head to talksportbet.com if you want to get involved. 18 plus, T's and C's apply. BeGambleAware.org.